And I would like to invite Dr. Sai Sunil Kishore. He is a consultant neonatologist from Medicover Hospital, Visakhapatnam. Sir, I would like you to take over.
Now it's visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. So very good afternoon, and I thank UNICEF team for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with you all today here. In this module, we are going to learn one of the very important aspect of neonatal management, that is optimal oxygen administration. So the topic looks simple, but actually this is one of the very crucial aspect in management of neonates, and especially in SNCUs. So how to use, what are the problems of hypoxia, hyperoxia, and how to avoid those problems. So the learning objectives of today's session will be to understand what are the basic concepts of oxygen, and to use oxygen therapy rationally in various clinical situations. So what are the situations it is going to be useful, and what are the situations where it is not useful, and to understand potential harms of hyperoxia. So what are the problems which we are going to face if you are giving too much of oxygen to these newborn babies, and to use various oxygen delivery systems like the ones which we commonly use, nasal prongs, oxygen hood. So to use this equipment very safely and effectively, and also the monitoring equipment which is used in SNCUs. So very safely and effectively how to use that, and how to improve the quality of the SNCU, and how to audit, and overall how to improve the quality. So that's what we are going to discuss in this session. So coming to some of the basic concepts, so we know that actually oxygen has got immense role in normal body function. So it is essential for functioning of each and every cell of the body, and it is also required for ATP synthesis. And the energy that is required for normal functioning of the cell, like synthesis of structural as well as functional proteins, and even other metabolic and enzymatic reactions. So all this is actually dependent upon oxygen. So the lack of oxygen can lead to depletion of energy, and which can lead to cell death. So normally when we talk of oxygenation, so which means oxygenation to the tissues. So this oxygen is transported in the blood. So most of it is bound to albumin, most of it is bound to hemoglobin, and some will be in the dissolved form. So when we talk of oxygen, like how much oxygen we are giving to the baby, so it is basically expressed in FiO2, fractional inspiratory oxygen concentration. So it is called FiO2. So the oxygen which is there in the blood, actually most of it is bound to hemoglobin, and some of it is in the dissolved form. So this particular, what do we mean by SpO2, the term which we commonly use in our SNCUs? So it is basically the percentage of saturation of oxygen, which means that percentage of hemoglobin which is totally bound to oxygen. So that is SpO2. What is PaO2, which we see in blood gases? So it is nothing but partial pressure of oxygen. So the pressure that is exerted by the dissolved oxygen. So that is PaO2. So this we will be able to know only in blood gas. Whereas saturation we will know with our monitor, like whether it's a pulse oximeter or multi-channel monitor. So now coming to one more aspect of basic concepts of oxygen, what is the relation between PaO2 and saturation? So here in x-axis it is PaO2. So whereas its y-axis it is the saturation. So if you see here, actually it is a sigmoid shaped curve. So which means that actually like at one point actually there will be sudden increase in the saturation, and after reaching particular point actually the saturation won't increase further. So that is the sigmoid shaped curve. So if you see the values here, so if you see actually if the PaO2 is something like 27 PaO2, then the saturation will be 50%, as you can appreciate here. So for around 27 PaO2, the saturation will be 50%. So if the PaO2 is 50%, then saturation will be 85%. If the PaO2 is 70%, then saturation will be approximately 95%. So that means actually we need PaO2 of around 70 to maintain saturation of 95. So that is important. But if you keep on increasing PaO2 further, then what will happen? It is a flat curve. So that means the saturation is not going to improve. So the maximum upper limit is 100, isn't it? So beyond that, it won't increase. Only the PaO2, that means dissolved oxygen, will increase, which has got its own problems. So now, what do we understand by hypoxia and hyperoxia? So basically, hypoxia means it is the low tissue oxygen, whereas hypoxemia means it is the low oxygen in the blood. That means actually your PaO2 is less, then you call it as hypoxemia. Hypoxia means the tissues are getting less oxygen. So hyperoxia means again the tissues are getting more oxygen. So it means high levels of oxygen. So now based on SpO2, what is hypoxia and what is hyperoxia? What is normal? Normal is 90 to 95%. So that is the normal saturation that is desirable. Hypoxia if saturation is less than 90. Whereas hyperoxia means if it is more than 95. In a neonate or a pediatric child who is an oxygen supplementation. That means if you are giving oxygen, that means like the saturation should not cross more than 95%. But if the spontaneously breathing baby, if the saturation is 97, 98, 100 is normal, that is okay. But if you are giving supplemental oxygen, you should not go beyond 95% saturation. So that is based on the saturation value. Then what is based on PaO2 values? So what is hypoxemia? What is normoxemia? So if the PaO2 is between 50 to 70, that is normoxemia. If the PaO2 is less than 50, then actually it is hypoxemia. Whereas if PaO2 is more than 70 in a neonate, whereas more than 90 in a child, so that is basically hyperoxia. So now what are the problems with this? So what are the effects of hypoxia and what are the effects of hyperoxemia? So hypoxia, sometimes it can be very acute event, or it can be recurrent hypoxic episodes because of multiple apneic episodes or multiple hypoxic episodes. So if the hypoxia is acute, then what will happen? The tissue suddenly, they will be deployed of oxygen. Then the brain will be affected, kidney will be affected, and multiple organs will be affected. So the baby will be having poor activity, lethargy, and altered sensorium and obtundation. Baby may become pale because of hypoperfusion. Bradycardia and shock can occur. And if the kidneys are affected, the urine output can be decreased. Whereas the hypoxic episodes, if they are recurrent, occurring multiple times, then what will happen? Actually, overall, it will increase the risk of mortality, and there will be increased risk of necrotizing enterocolitis, and there will be also increased risk of periventricular leukomalacia. So the whatever the white matter which is there in the brain surrounding the ventricles, so that will be more susceptible for these hypoxic episodes, and subsequently it will lead to periventricular leukomalacia. So that's why in preterm babies, PVL is more common. Periventricular leukomalacia is more common due to hypoxic episodes. And pulmonary hypertension can occur. So this can occur in both preterm as well as term babies, but it's more common in term babies. So now, what are the effects of hyperoxia? This is very, very important. So we know that actually hypoxia is dangerous. We should also know that hyperoxia is equally dangerous, because if you give more and more oxygen, the PaO2s are more, the hyperoxemia, it will be detrimental to some of the organs. The most important one is eye. So retinopathy of prematurity can occur secondary to hyperoxia, and the free oxygen radical injury is detrimental to the lungs as well as brain also, as well as intestines. So it can lead to bronchopulmonary dysplasia or CLD, chronic lung disease, which we call commonly. And it also increases the brain injury. So post-asphyxial brain injury will be increased whenever there are excessive free oxygen radicals. And NEC also will be increased whenever there is hyperoxia. So we should understand that hyperoxia is also dangerous and it has got its own problems. So basically we need to use oxygen optimally. So you should avoid both hypoxia as well as hyperoxia. So now, till now, what are the key messages which we have learned? Oxygen is essential for normal functioning of the body, and both hypoxia and hyperoxia are harmful. And for monitoring, so basically we need pulse oximeter to maintain the saturation in the normal range. So at higher oxygen saturation ranges, the SpO2 is not reliable. It fails to detect hyperoxia. So which I was mentioning in the oxygen dissociation curve. So as I was mentioning, even if the PaO2 increases, the saturation will be at that level only, like between 95 to 100. So the saturations will be actually will not be reliable to detect hyperoxia. So that is another important point which you need to know. Now, maintaining optimal oxygen saturation targets is very essential. So that saturation target should be between 91 to 95%. So to prevent both hypoxia as well as hyperoxia. So if you are asked like what is a saturation target whenever you are giving oxygen, the answer is 91 to 95%. So till now we understood the basic concepts and what are the problems of hypoxia and hyperoxia. Now, how to detect hypoxia, whether it is a SNCU or NICU. So how to detect? There are three ways. One is by clinical examination. Other one is by monitoring with pulse oximeter or blood gas. So these are the three things by which we can detect hypoxia. So clinically, how will you detect? So hypoxia will cause cyanosis because the deoxyhemoglobin will be more, then the baby will look more blue. So the hypoxia causes cyanosis, but the clinical examination has got its own problems. Many times actually the cyanosis may not be picked up in the early stages. So unless it is too late. So because of various factors like because of the skin color, because of the experience of the doctor, whoever is the doctor or nurse, whoever is there. So it depends on various factors. So that's why actually even the color is also removed from the NRP. So in the earlier NRP protocols, like the color is used to be there. But subsequently in the last two protocols, 2015 and 20, it was removed. Okay, now what are the other modalities? So other one is pulse oximeter. So it is very easy, isn't it? So immediately you can know what is the oxygenation, what is the oxygen levels. So it is immediate and real time. The cost is also less. The skill that is required is also less, like whenever you are using pulse oximeter and there is no pain to the baby. So pulse oximeter is one of the reliable way to detect hypoxia. Now blood gas. So blood gas, like if the PaO2 is less, the partial pressure of oxygen is less, that means less than 50, then you call it as hypoxia or hypoxemia. So, but it is not really required unless you want to know the ventilation status also. That means the carbon dioxide status also, if you want to know, then you need blood gas. Otherwise, routinely it is not, routinely just to detect hypoxia, it is not needed. And by doing blood gas, you will also can appreciate like what is the acid-base status of the baby and what are the electrolytes. So these are the different pros and cons of all these three methods: clinical versus pulse oximeter versus ABG. So, as I was mentioning, the clinical identification may not be possible each time, and continuous monitoring with pulse oximeter is essential to identify any hypoxic episodes. So, it is not a single time this thing. So, once the baby is in SNCU, so the baby should be continuously on the pulse oximeter. And higher at a higher oxygen saturation, the SpO2 is not reliable, and the saturation target is 90 to 95, which we discussed earlier. Now, coming to the third aspect. So till now we discussed basic concepts and how to detect hypoxia. Now the third aspect. So rational use of oxygen in various clinical situations. So whether oxygen is going to be helpful in each and every scenario, or every baby in SNCU should be in oxygen. So let's see. So oxygen is the most common and abundantly used drug in NICU. So I'm using the word drug. Okay. So though it is a gas, so it has to be treated as a drug. So both low and high can cause problems. And assess the clinical scenario before starting oxygen in NICU. So not that actually each and every baby who comes to SNCU, you just initially start the baby in oxygen, because it works in certain situations and it won't work, and it can be harmful if you are giving too much. So basically it is going to work whenever there is pathology in the lung or in the pulmonary vessels. That means like any pulmonary hypertension, these kind of scenarios. And it is not useful in the cyanotic congenital heart diseases, because the problem is not in the lungs. So it is the shunting which is occurring at the level of the shunting, or there is cardiac issue. So that's why it is not going to be helpful. And the optimal use is essential for the good growth as well as neurodevelopment. Optimal use of oxygen is required for good growth and neurodevelopment of the baby. So that's why we call intact survival. So if you have a baby, like at the end of the day, whether it's a premature baby or term baby, it's not only about the saving the life of the baby and the future of the baby. The long-term neurodevelopmental outcome of the baby also should be good. So that's called intact survival. So if you give actually too much oxygen, it can lead to CLD, bronchopulmonary dysplasia, and these kind of problems. So which we need to avoid. So as I was mentioning in the previous slide, it is useful whenever there is a problem in the lung or pulmonary blood vessels. So hypoxia can be due to various reasons, like reduced oxygen availability. So which can be due to lung disease itself or hypoventilation. So the baby is not breathing, apneic baby, or there is asphyxiated baby where there is hypoventilation, and there will be decreased alveolar oxygen. So if you give more oxygen, so it can be useful in that particular baby. If there is intrapulmonary shunt, it can be again useful. So if there is shock or congestive cardiac failure, so again it is useful. So whenever you document hypoxia, so where the saturation itself is less than 90, or if you do the blood gas, if the PaO2 is less than 50. So if you document hypoxia, you have to administer oxygen. And it is useful whenever there is shock, apnea, and chronic lung disease, which is otherwise called as bronchopulmonary dysplasia in a more common in preterm babies, very tiny babies. So what I meant to say is oxygen is not useful in each and every situation. So you should assess the clinical scenario of the baby as well as severity of the respiratory distress and take a decision whether to start oxygen or not. So now we discussed 3 aspects. Now we are coming to the 4th aspect, like what are the sources of oxygen in our SNCUs. So it can be central supply, it can be from the cylinders, or it can be from the oxygen concentrators. So central supply, like you can directly connect to the flow meter here, or if the baby is on CPAP or ventilator, you can directly connect the hose to the central supply. So if you are using cylinders, so you should know some of the practical aspects of cylinders. and also oxygen concentrators. So the most commonly used one in most of the SNCUs is the central supply and oxygen concentrators. And only during the transport and from delivery room to SNCU or from one hospital to other hospital, we use cylinders. So in oxygen cylinder, like these are some of the basic aspects like which all of us should know. It's not that it is job of only housekeeping people and they should know, because in time of crisis you should be able to know how to open, how to close, how oxygen cylinder operates also. So basic details you should be aware, like what is the pressure regulator. So these are some of the basic parts of the oxygen cylinder: pressure gauge, flow regulator knob, as well as like where to open, where to close. So whenever you are using oxygen cylinder, it should be stored in a safe and secure area where they can't fall over and cause injury to the either healthcare professionals or to the babies. And do not store or use cylinders where the naked flames or sources of ignition are there. And smoking should not be permitted within the vicinity. So another like source of oxygen is oxygen concentrator. So I think actually there is a lot of demand during this COVID season for oxygen concentrators. So one should know some of the basic details how the oxygen concentrator works. So in oxygen concentrator, what happens is it basically takes the air and it gives the pure oxygen. So how it happens? It is called pressure swing technology, PSA technology, pressure swing adsorption technology. So as you can see here, so the air will go inside from the atmosphere. So what does it air contains? The major components are nitrogen and oxygen. So nitrogen is predominant thing, almost like 73%, and oxygen is your 21%. So the air goes in and it will be compressed. Here the air will get compressed, and after that actually there will be two cylinders, so which contains that porous substance. It's called zeolite. Basically what it does is it will absorb the nitrogen and it will release only oxygen to the subsequently, and there the pressure tank will be there and subsequently it will come out. So this is the basic principle in the oxygen concentrator. So the nitrogen it will take and it will release oxygen. So these are some of the important aspects, like because we are using different oxygen sources, so we should know some basic details how it works and how to operate. So we discussed the source of oxygen. Now, what are the O2 delivery devices? So there are they can be basically classified into two varieties. One group are called low flow systems and other group are called high flow systems. So nasal cannula, nasal prongs, which we most commonly use in our SNCUs, are face mask, intranasal catheters, and NRBM mask, NRM mask. So non-rebreathing mask. So these are examples of low flow system. And what are the examples of high flow system? So there is a thing called Venturi mask, or it's otherwise called air entrainment mask, and high flow nasal cannula, triple HFNC, good oxygen, and of course CPAP ventilation if the baby goes to CPAP ventilation. So these are high flow systems. So the most commonly used ones we are going to discuss now: nasal prongs and hood oxygen in detail. And the rest of it is like a little bit I'll touch upon. So what is the basic difference? In low flow systems, the oxygen flow rate is less and they do not provide a constant FiO2. Whereas high flow systems, the flow is more and they will deliver specific and constant FiO2. So these are the basic differences between low flow and high flow systems. So now coming to the first one, the nasal prongs or nasal cannula. You can also call it as nasal cannula. So both are synonymous. So here we are having this short nasal cannula about 1 centimeters, which is designed to lie within the nostrils of the baby. So what are the standard flow rates? So for neonates, we should use less than 1 liter per minute. Usually we'll start with 0.5 liters per minute, like if the option is there. If it should be less than 1 liter per minute, and maximum we go up to usually 2 or maximum 2.5 liters per minute, not beyond that. For infants, we'll go up to like 2 to 2 liters per minute, that is common, and up to 3 liters per minute maximum, like we'll go. So whenever you are giving nasal prongs, so we should select correct size prong, and as been shown here in this pic, so the baby should be like the baby nasal prongs were well fitted, and it is fixed with the transparent adhesive, which we commonly use like Tegaderm, and ensure the prongs are properly fitted and nose is not blocked and neck is slightly extended. So these are some of the practical aspects. Like if the neck is flexed also, then it won't go. So the oxygen delivery is not proper. So the proper position and proper fitting is very important. And you have to check the flow also in the flow meter. Now, what is the usual FiO2 it will deliver? If the baby is on 0.5 liters per minute, it will deliver around 35% of FiO2. If it is 1 liter per minute, it will deliver around 45%. If it is 2 liters per minute, it will deliver 55% of FiO2. So this is for neonates. Now, what about oxygen hood? So oxygen hood are available in different models. So the better one and more commonly used one is this one, which has got actually, there is opening here where actually baby's neck will be there, and this one and this one, which are called port holes. So they can be closed and they can be open. So depending on the FiO2 requirement, depending on the oxygen requirement, actually we will decide, clinician will decide whether to open the portholes or whether to close the portholes. So what should be the flow rate whenever you are using oxygen hood? The flow rate should be 2 to 3 liters per kg per minute. So this is the flow rate. For example, you are treating a 2 kg baby. So the flow rate should be varying between 4 to 6 liters per minute. So that is the rough estimate. So if you are using hood oxygen, what is the FiO2 that is going to be delivered? If both portholes are closed, then it will give 80 to 90%. If one is closed, then it will give 40 to 50%. If both are open, it will give 30 to 40%. So that is the FiO2 that is going to give in oxygen hood. And this is also another measurement, like what is the FiO2 that is going to be delivered without any lead, like if it's without any portholes. So if it is there, so for the medium size head box, so if you are using 2 liters per minute of flow, then it will give around 50%. If you are using almost 9 liters per minute of flow, then it is going to give 90% of FiO2. So these are the common modes of oxygen delivery: nasal prong as well as hood oxygen. What are the other modes? The other non-invasive modes are face mask, routine face mask oxygen, or free flow oxygen. That means like you keep the oxygen into the incubator. So if the baby is getting incubator care, so which is not possible in most of the SNCUs. So because many babies will be in open care system. So if the baby is in incubator, so we can actually keep the oxygen in the incubator itself, where the FiO2 will be up to the tune of 30% or 35% like that. So you can increase the FiO2 till that point. So there are other methods like semi-invasive methods, where actually there are catheters are little longer. So nasopharyngeal prong and nasal oxygen catheters, somewhat like this. So which are not preferable also. Like more preferable ones are like nasal prong oxygen as well as hood oxygen. And we should understand actually the function of NRM. So how it functions, and so what are the situations where it is going to be useful. It is more commonly used in pediatric age group as well as adults, especially during COVID times. Again, the NRM mask usage has been too high, but in neonates it is uncommonly used. It delivers a higher FiO2 and even up to 100% when well fitted. And use when you need to provide oxygen high oxygen concentrations, and but the baby should be spontaneously breathing. So in a spontaneously breathing baby, if the baby requires very high FiO2 and you don't have the option of a CPAP or a ventilator at that point of time, for a transitional period, you can use NRM mask. So how it works? So this is how NRM mask will look like. So it has got the mask as well as you have reservoir bag. So this is how it functions. So here actually you have a connector. So where to connect the oxygen. So here oxygen will be connected and it will enter to the reservoir as well as to the baby. And you have two valves here, expired gas. It's a basically one-way valve. So that's why actually whatever is there in the reservoir bag, actually it is oxygen. And expired air won't get mixed up with the inhaled air. So that's why actually it can go up to almost 100% FiO2. So that's how it works. Another important oxygen delivery device which you need to know is Venturi mask. So it is called Venturi mask or air entrainer. So basically it is a high flow device. So they are color coded basically. So you have a mask something like this and different color coded ones. So the green one will deliver higher FiO2, almost like 60%, and the red one will deliver 40% FiO2, and here the orange one deliver around 30%. So we like most of the units they use either red or green. So basically it works on Bernoulli principle. It's called dilutional mask. So whenever the oxygen is going at a relatively higher flow, it also takes simultaneously air because it will create negative pressure surrounding it. So that's why the air also will be taken into that. And depending on the size of this hole, so it will decide like how much FiO2 is going to be delivered to the baby. So advantages are fixed FiO2 as well as it helps in deciding if the oxygen requirement is increasing or decreasing. So that's how it works. So now humidification. So it is again very much desirable to prevent the drying of nasal mucosa as well as nasal block, and ideal is to provide warm and humidified oxygen. So that is ideal by using humidifier. So by doing this, actually like what we do routinely, we are adding water to the central supply of oxygen. So but the warmth is not being added. The temperature is not again still going to be cold only. So, and another important practical point is like whenever you are putting water here, you should use distilled water. Don't use normal saline or deionized water. We need to use. So what we do in our NICU is like, for example, if a baby is requiring oxygen, so that through humidifier will give. So the oxygen will be connected here to the humidifier, and from there actually it will be connected to the baby. So it will give both warmth as well as humidity to the baby. Then the baby will be more comfortable and the complications will be less, the blockage will be less, and it is more useful in conditions like bronchiolitis in later neonatal period as well as early infancy. So you have other options like high flow nasal cannulas where we use HFNC machines. So now how to deliver desired FiO2. So again, there are two options. So if you have this machine, this is called a blender. So it will take oxygen as well as air, and it will like whatever you are setting, like for example, here it is set 60%. So it will deliver only 60% FiO2. If you don't have that option of blender, because blender is costly, it will cost around 60,000 to 80,000. So if the blender option is not there, so we can also use bike connector here. So for example, you have air source as well as oxygen source, and you can use a Y connector, and that can be connected to the baby. So for example, this is the table for that. So if you, for example, if you connect 1 liter of oxygen and 2 liters of air, it will deliver somewhat like 47% FiO2. So now we are coming to the last part of the presentation, monitoring a baby on oxygen. So till now we discussed basic concepts, what are the sources of oxygen and what are the clinical conditions where it is going to be useful, practical aspects like humidification as well as the various delivery devices. So now what about monitoring? So all babies should be on pulse oximeter. So if a baby is on oxygen, the baby should be on pulse oximeter. There's no doubt about that. So it is must for any baby on oxygen, and it can be dedicated pulse oximeter or it can be part of multi-channel monitor. And it is more important during resuscitation as well as transport also. And like whenever you are connecting the baby, connecting the probe of the pulse oximeter to the baby, you first clean with 70% alcohol. And commonly what happens in some of the situations, like when the baby's limbs are cold or there is hypoperfusion and shock, sepsis, so sometimes septic shock. So these are the situations where actually the plethysmograph, that means the waveform, this waveform will be minimized and it won't pick up the signal properly. So then the saturation, whatever is being shown, can be falsely abnormal. So there's a technology called signal extraction technology, and some of the pulse oximeters, they use the technology, and it can pick up the signal even whenever there is low signal also. So we'll have a video demonstration on pulse oximeter because that is one of the very important aspect in SNCU. And you should know about pulse oximeter in and out for optimal oxygen administration. The saturation targets in delivery room. So these are the saturation targets. Like at 1 minute, it should be between 60 to 65. These are pre-ductal saturations. And at 10 minutes, it should be between 85 to 95. And whenever you are giving oxygen to a baby, so the monitoring also includes proper documentation. So you should document the general condition, what is happening to the vital parameters, respiratory rate, retractions, grunting, and the respiratory distress score. Like if you are using Silverman-Anderson score or Downey score. In last week, Dr. Srinivas told nicely about Silverman-Anderson score as well as Downey score. And once oxygen is started, reassess the baby. Don't start and just go away. So you have to stand by the bedside of the baby and reassess within 15 to 30 minutes to see whether the respiratory distress is improving or not. And nursing care is one of the very important aspects. So periodically keep checking the position of the prongs, flow, whether it's correct or not. And you can also check the flow in dipping the nasal prong in distilled water. Neck position, you should check the flow meter. Nasal care is important, and also you have to look for any complications. If the baby doesn't improve with your oxygen administration, so if the baby is on oxygen, nasal cannula or nasal prongs, you can increase up to 2 liters per minute. If the baby is on hood oxygen, you can go up to 5 to 8 liters per minute, maximum up to 8 liters per minute. And if the baby doesn't improve, depending on the clinical situation, you have to consider early CPAP or ventilation based on the clinical diagnosis. And one word about oxygen analyzer. So this is also very important in essence use. So you can know, like for example, if you are not using blender, or even if you are using blender also, so whether whatever is being delivered to the baby, whether it is giving correct FiO2 or not. For example, you want to give 30%. So whether it's giving 30% or not, you can check this by using this FiO2 analyzer. Basically, it is a small cylindrical device consisting of galvanic cell with sensor. And it has got 2 dissimilar electrodes in aqueous electrolyte phase in KOH. So after calibration, the sensor should be placed inside the hood, away from the oxygen inflow end of the tubing. For example, if you are giving oxygen through hood, So at the you can just keep at the baby level, not at the level of the oxygen inflow, and wait for 5 to 20 seconds. It is called response time, and it will display the value. So that is the concentration of oxygen. You can check like whether you are giving the intended oxygen FiO2 or not. And the auditing is very important. Like whenever you are giving oxygen, so the auditing is very important to improve the quality of any unit. So it can be for a particular baby, or it can be for the entire unit itself. So these are some of the charts actually which can be used like whenever you are giving oxygen to the babies. And for the quality improvement, so you can see how many are the hyperoxic episodes for a baby, and what is the incidence of retinopathy of prematurity, what is the incidence of bronchopulmonary dysplasia. So these are all the quality indices to look at the optimal oxygen administration. And this is one of the very important slide which you should know. So it is prevention of prevention of ROP. So which we were discussing in between. So basically at the time of birth, so resuscitation has to be done with the blended oxygen to prevent hyperoxia. And monitoring should be done with pulse oximeter, and keep the saturation target less than 95. And during transport also, proper optimal oxygen administration is very important. And in NICU, like always keep the saturation target between 90 to 95, and monitor all babies with pulse oximeters throughout the course of oxygen administration. And careful use of oxygen hood is again important. Like if you keep both the portholes closed, it will give almost like 80 to 90% of FiO2, which is again problematic to the baby. And you should try to reduce overall the oxygen hours as well as the oxygen days, the number of days which you are giving. So these are some of the important aspects to prevent retinopathy of prematurity in your SNCUs. So coming to the last slides. So the take-home messages which I discussed till now are: oxygen is a drug. It has to be used very judiciously. Both hypoxia and hyperoxia are harmful to the neonate. Hypoxia will increase the mortality, whereas hyperoxia increases the NEC, ROP, and the bronchopulmonary dysplasia. And don't just start oxygen in all babies. So based on the clinical scenario, you have to assess. And oxygen is not helpful in all the pathologies. It is helpful in lung pathologies as well as pulmonary vascular problems. And the most commonly used delivery methods, oxygen delivery methods in our SNCU are nasal prongs and oxygen hood. And low flow meters, actually there are routine flow meters, actually it will be ranging between 1 to 12 like that. But low flow meters, actually the graduations will be there from 0.25 to 5 liters per minute. So those are desirable in SNCUs, because many times we give 0.25 liters, 0.5 liters also to these small babies. And humidification of oxygen is must while providing oxygen. And in SNCU, to deliver desired FiO2, we should use blender, and if blender is not available, use Y connector. And monitoring by pulse oximetry continuously, that is very important. And keep the saturation targets between 91 to 95%, that is again very important. And monitoring also includes the periodic checking of vitals as well as checking of flow meter, whether the water is there in the flow meter or not, whether actually oxygen is getting delivered to the baby or not. So these are all very important aspects. And periodic auditing will help in quality improvement of the unit, which I was mentioning. If the baby is not improving, consider early CPAP or early mechanical ventilation depending on the clinical condition of the baby. So that's the end of my presentation. And now we'll play a video of the pulse oximeter, how to use pulse oximeter and what are the practical aspects.